Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I have back with me mayoral candidate Sebastian Nalls. Welcome back, Sebastian.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, yes. So our last meeting was the mayoral debate, and that got really interesting. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. I want to make sure everybody's muted. Everyone's muted. Okay, so we don't have any distractions here. Okay, so the debate, Sebastian, one, it started getting a little heated when we started talking about the city budget, when we brought up, definitely when we brought up reparations. And as of recently, Alderman Ann Rainey, that whole situation. So I definitely want to talk to you about that because I know you and Lori together released a statement in response to Ann Rainey's racial slur towards 8th Ward candidate Devon Reed, who's also city clerk at the moment. And Daniel Biss had released his own statement in regards to that. So let's start there because I know people are really wondering what the heck happened with Ann Rainey and why you and Lori released the statement.
No, definitely. So in an effort to attack this issue as a unifying force, and especially coming as a Black man myself, I took the comments that she made. They offended me personally, and I know they offended many people of color, and especially Devon Reed. That these racial tropes that have been thrown on people of color has been detrimental to the advancement of Black people, especially here in Evanston. We come off as aggressive, scary, that, we can't talk about our upbringings and, where the negatives and the positives may be, that we may use it for political points. But it's the fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter how you're raised, and Devon's parents, being incarcerated, that is a defining moment in his life. And that was something that impacted him and made him into the man he is today, that he overcame the struggles and, he grew from it. And it highlights his experiences, and it's more than appropriate for him to talk about that in that setting, and especially when meeting new people and discussing his platform, etc. So I thought it was extremely inappropriate with the comments that she made, and this is not the first time that she's made comments of these regards. And me personally, I felt that this is not it's not acceptable, and especially to somebody who currently holds public office, let alone a candidate running for public office. So I believe that this was an opportunity for all mayoral candidates to come together and attack this issue head on. And I reached out to both candidates, and Lori responded right away. I reached out to Daniel in the beginning of the day through his campaign manager, didn't hear anything back. And it wasn't until later that evening, after he had released a statement, that he had finally gotten back to me. And it's unfortunate that he was unable to join in on our joint statement. And I'm happy that he released a statement himself as well, condemning her actions, and that they were inappropriate, that they were racist and completely unacceptable for Evanston. And I stand by the fact that anyone who has been endorsed by Ann Rainey, or has given Ann Rainey an endorsement, should remove that endorsement, whether that's from their website or retract such a statement, because it's completely inappropriate, and it shows that you're out of touch with the community, and not being with the Black community as per se, because it's just that the comments that she made only reinforce the racist tropes, the racist beliefs that some people may still hold about Black members of our community. So it's important that we make an example of this, that this type of behavior, this type of discourse is unacceptable in Evanston, that these are not ideals that we hold here in Evanston. And we made a push, and we released that resolution during the summer to condemn racism, that will fight systemic racism wherever we see fit. And that's a prime example of such taking place. So it's up to us to stand up to it and continue to work and comb through the city of Evanston through our policies, programs, and really make an in-depth analysis on what our policies are doing to our Black and brown communities, and how we can improve as a city overall.
Sebastian, I really do appreciate you as just an amazing individual because you're fearless, you speak truth, and that's something we have definitely been needing. Um, Alderman Ann Rainey has, oh my gosh, she has made horrible comments. I mean, racial comments. I mean, just horrible comments to just anyone who opposes her in any sort of way. It doesn't matter what color they are. She's that person, and she's gotten away with it for so many years. And I believe I read somewhere someone said, it's time to stop normalizing her behavior. Like it's okay. Um, and the racial comments that she has made is just, I can't believe the Board of Ethics has allowed her to get away with so much, because she has been reported a few times. And she just gets away with it, gets away with it. But for some reason, this time, people are taking notice and saying, okay, this is unacceptable. Why do you think now people are finally saying, okay, Ann Rainey, that's enough. That's enough.
I think it's building on the effort and the work done by some of my very own peers over the summer. With the death of George Floyd, we saw a rise in Black Lives Matter in Evanston, and really residents taking hold and saying, that this happens in Evanston, that this behavior, it is possible that that it's not just in Ferguson, Missouri, that it's not just in Kenosha, that it is possible for racism to exist in Evanston. And we often say that we live in this bubble.
They're not
That
yours.
They're mine.
No, I'm
They're not
saying
for
the people.
that we often we live in this bubble that's exempt from some of these issues, but that's not the fact. And I believe that that we've been capitalizing on some of the work that's been going on, especially throughout the summer. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to run in the first place, is that Evanston had a prime example, or an opportunity to take advantage of the situation that's here in the United States, that we can use this wave of energy when it comes to civil rights, and ensuring opportunities for our Black and brown residents, to really take hold and go through our city and see exactly what programs, policies are unjust, and change them for the betterment of all Evanstonians. And that's not really what happened, but I believe that that wave is still here, and we can still ride it going forward. And I think that's where we see this pushback, that Evanston residents have said enough is enough. We cannot allow this to continue. If we want to continue being the city that we are, one that's diverse, that's inclusive, that works for every single Evanston resident, then we need to hold true to those values. And when an elected official, or a candidate for that matter, acts in a way that is detrimental to the successes that we've had so far, then we need to call it out how it is. And we need to hold them responsible, because as elected officials, we are public servants. We are supposed to be the face of Evanston. And if we have the face of Evanston that is acting in that way, it's completely unacceptable. So I'm happy to see that Evanston residents are coming together and finally saying enough is enough. And that shows to me that it is a prime opportunity now to make some positive change here in Evanston and go forward with, whether it's reparations, police reform, affordable housing, and helping out our Black and Brown communities and working to combat gentrification. These are all issues that can be tackled. And, we have to continue to have these conversations and be comfortable with it. And when we are, we'll achieve some truly great things here.
Now, speaking of reparations, I think racism in Evanston gets really tricky. Um, it gets really tricky because here you have Ann Rainey, who is on the committee of reparations. She's made a lot of racial comments in the past, but here she is having a lot of say in what Black people deserve and what they should get, right? So she came up with the idea to take the cannabis tax dollars and use that money towards reparations. That was great. That was a great idea. But then she stayed in the mix. And then um, I believe everyone has heard the radio interview of Alderman Robin Ruth Simmons at the beginning stage of reparations, where she wanted to, it was going to be an option to get a check. Everyone would get a check, or, it was going to be something where all the Black families in Evanston would benefit. And then all of a sudden, it turned into, well, only a few of Black families are going to get anything. And not only that, they have to get qualified. And so, what people aren't understanding is a lot of people don't qualify for bank loans because of systemic racism, institutional racism in the first place. So I loved how you put that in the debate, how you said they're putting Black people in a box and saying, here, take this or nothing. And so now Ann Rainey is more people are saying, okay, something's up here. She's on the committee of reparations, determining what people get, the amount of money people get. Not her alone, but she has a say in it. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a problem. And I think that's why we're in the situation that we are now. I recently shared the highlights from the debate that included our conversation on reparations and into a Facebook group about reparations and reparation solutions. And I had an individual who's been working on reparations come out and say that, essentially that I didn't understand the complexities of reparations. And, as a candidate, as a Black man, as a 20-year-old, I've seen ageism, I've seen racism, and the idea that, that I don't understand because of who I am, or, that it's the assumption that I don't understand fully what's going on. And, I may not be behind the scenes, but I'm more than capable of, understanding the intricacies of this whole program. But most of all, I understand that our Black and Brown residents need to have a voice in this discussion. And that's the most important part of this all. And, from talking to so many residents, it's that they feel as if that this program is not encompassing, that they're being left out. And like I made those comments before during the debate, that, we're being put in a box and saying, you either get this or you don't. And, I applaud Robin Ruth Simmons and the rest of the reparations committee and anybody else who's contributed so much to the program as a whole. And I'm so proud to be part of a community where we have been in the forefront of this topic and really leading the charge. But we also have to recognize that we're almost on a balancing beam, that every single step we take is extremely important and we can fall off at any moment. And if we fall off, it can be detrimental to the entire nation and the topic of reparations as a whole. So, it may take 2 more years to get it right. And we're not going to make every single thing as perfectly as it possibly can be. We're going to make mistakes along the way. That's okay. That's part of the growing process. I make mistakes, and that's part of, learning on an everyday basis. And we have to understand that if we don't get it right, it allows for other communities to see, okay, this is the way that it should be done. This is how we're going to implement reparations in our community. So if they see that there's a lack of community input, or we just go through home ownership, and assume that, okay, that's the way that we could go. And we see that we may never be able to achieve true reparations. And that's the problem I have with it. And that's why, I always say that, I'm more than committed to staying in the community for, more than one term, if that's what the voters and Evanston residents would love to see. And because these issues may not be solved in 4 years, that this is going to take time, energy, and commitment to really see all of these things through. That we're going to go out into the community, talk to residents, have these conversations. And I do believe that some of the reparations process have been set back by, by Ann Rainey in her comments in the committee, and just the overall dragging of the feet that, that some people feel as if that reparations are not necessary. But we've seen there's hard data behind it that shows that Black members of Evanston have been negatively impacted by systemic racism here, whether that's through banking, whether that's through redlining, whether that's through beach tokens, whether that's through policing. It's to say, that there's been systemic racism when it comes to home ownership. Therefore, we're going to only give home ownership grants or, any home ownership assistance. There are so many aspects of Evanston, so many different policies that have been in place that have impacted Black residents in a negative way, and other than just home ownership. So that's why it's important that we continually having these conversations and give residents the option to choose what they would like to do with their money. Because it does not make sense for the oppressor and the person who's been doing the wrongdoing in the past, at least, to go forth and say that this is how you should use your money, and we're going to tell you how you should use it. And it doesn't make sense to me. It obviously doesn't make sense to a lot of residents, which is why we're having this conversation in the first place. So let's go back and fix it. There's nothing wrong with saying that there's still work to be done. And it's okay. That's part of the learning process. And we'll just learn and grow together.
Mhm. Sebastian, you brought up some really great points in the debate, and everything you said about reparations, I was 100% behind you, and I thank you for saying all that you said. Um, in regards to affordable housing and the city budget, I mean, I believe I asked you this in your first individual interview, so I'm gonna ask you again because now starting to get in the thick of the election, and you were out into the community prior to. That's why you know so much. Um, I think people are amazed at how much you know. It's I mean, you know more than people my age who have been here forever. You know more about what's going on in the city and how it operates, and you actually have solutions and ideas of how to change things and bring something new to the table. So in my interviews with people in regards to affordable housing, they're saying that there is money there for affordable housing. One candidate running for 7th Ward, Mary Rosinski, she said, I don't even see, she's a longtime real estate person. She said, I don't see why we have to build something, bring in developers and spend all that money. We could just take buildings that already exist and turn them into affordable housing. I mean, it's so many great ideas, and then I'm told it's so much money that the city is sitting on in terms of affordable housing. What would be your conversation with Erica Storley in regards to affordable housing right now?
I think, well, first, I do want to say that, over the course of the campaign, I surround myself with individuals who are specialized in various fields, different experts. And, I may be knowledgeable in a lot about Evanston throughout my time of working for the city, being out in the community. But in the end of the day, I'm still learning. And that's what I think is unique about my position in particular, is that, you know, I don't have the answer to everything, and I will be the first to admit that. And I believe that Evanston going forward needs a mayor who's going to be willing to listen to people, and recognizing that we have valuable resources here in Evanston. And I think that's how we start that conversation with Storley, that look, we have many residents who are more than willing to donate their time for free, be in mind, not even, you know, at charge, to come up with an affordable housing plan that we can use going forward. I talked to a resident right before this meeting, and she's been here since she was a Northwestern grad student in the 70s, and she's worked in real estate, and she remembers way back in the 90s going to the city of Evanston and saying, like, look, I have people here. We can come up with an affordable housing plan. You know, we can go forward with this, and we can at free charge, like no charge whatsoever. We'll do this because we want to see Evanston be better overall. And it was kind of brushed off to the side. And we see that we're in the situation that we are now. So this has been an evolving issue throughout the years. This is not something that is, you know, new within the last 2, 3, 4 years, that we've been on this road. And that's why we are where we are. And I think that's the conversation that we need to have, is that there are many individuals in and around Evanston that are more than committed to creating an affordable housing plan. And that's exactly what we need. We can't just, because we obviously need affordable housing. The numbers show that we're at risk for being not affordable for families. So what the city council has been doing has been attempting to bring in more affordable housing, right? Through bringing in developers. They promised to section off some of their development for affordable housing. But in the end of the day, it's this kick the can down the road mentality that, you know, whenever a new developer comes in, that'll be our answer to affordable housing. And that's not a sustainable solution. And that's why we need to have these conversations. You know, I've talked to Mary Rosinski before about affordable housing. I've talked to Gail Schechter before about affordable housing. But we need to bring in all of these experts who have been working in the field and know exactly about this topic, and create a solution that encompasses many different individual solutions, because there's no one copy and paste method that we can use across the board in Evanston. Every community is different. So we need to approach it in an almost ward by ward, community by community basis, and apply a plan that will help all of Evanston in terms of affordable housing. And that's exactly the conversation that I would have with Eric. So look, this can be my job as mayor, is bringing people together to have this conversation, and we can go forward with this. We've seen this happen before in Evanston with our climate action and resilience plan, that was made by mainly volunteers who donated their time to come up with this document. So we see that it worked in the past before. So why don't we do it with affordable housing now? It hasn't been done before. So let's get together. Let's get to work.
Hmm. Hmm. So clearly, I don't know what the holdup has been, because you have the Mary Rosinski's. I mean, she's been out here a long time trying to talk to the city. It just doesn't appear that certain people at the city want to listen to the people. They only want to listen to certain people on the council, not all the council, but certain people on the council. And to me, those people are kind of out of touch with what's going on actually in the community. They're just thinking about dollars and how they can get paid, well, allegedly get paid. So it's just so, it's an injustice all over again. So years from now, Black community, if there's still one here in Evanston, will be trying to get reparations for what's happening right now with the city. So you being finance, that's your area, that's your heart, your passion. Sitting down with City Manager Erica Storley, not with just affordable housing, but with everything going on with the city right now in terms of our debt and just everything, how money is being spent, what's the first thing you're going to tackle? So we've already talked about reparations and affordable housing. What's next? Being a finance person.
Yeah, definitely. And my mom's an accountant. I come from line of accountants, and that's one of my majors and one of the fields that I wanted to get into. And I thought that it would always be strategic, because I've always wanted to go in the public service, but to have that financial background, to be able to come up with a plan and then have the funds to actually go see through with that plan. And I think going forward, we need to see an economic development plan here in Evanston, and I know there hasn't been one in place for some time. And that goes back to what I said about kicking the can down the road, where, on a year by year basis. And I understand that, especially with budgeting, that it's hard to make estimates, that, things happen. We just had COVID. Nobody saw COVID coming. And, we have to account for that budget shortfall. And that won't happen on a year by year basis. But the idea is that we can have a roadmap that we can follow for the next 10, 20, 30 years about, this is how we see, property taxes changing over the course of that time period. This is where we want to allocate our funds in terms of the climate action and resilience plan and climate action. This is where we want to allocate our funds when it comes to police reform, and we lay that out so we have a framework that even residents can follow, right? If there's a framework that says, here's exactly what we're going to do, or not exactly, but here's approximately what we're going to do over the course of 20 years. And if we don't go through with it, it holds a level of accountability that residents can go like, well, we had this roadmap and you're not following it. Obviously, you need to do something about it. And so it adds accountability, as well as transparency to the whole process. But it allows us to better budget ourselves overall. That we see that we have a deficit right now. And so I put together a Northwestern contribution plan that Northwestern takes up 10% of Evanston overall. And in 2017, the city manager's office did an estimate of what all those properties would pay in terms of property taxes if Northwestern was not a non-for-profit institution. And it came up to be about $29 million. And, I can't help but think about okay, they give about $1 million in the Good Neighbor Fund. You're supposed to take fire services out of that Good Neighbor Fund. That's what they told Erica Storley. So we're left with about $400,000. They have a few programs that they work with Evanston Township High School. They have a couple other programs that work directly with residents. But overall, we're not even touching that number. And, Evanston is only so large. We only have so much land that we can possibly tax. But so we have revenue streams that we can go into. We have negotiations that we can enter and say, hey, look, Northwestern, I know you need X. Your students need Y. And then our residents need Z. So let's come together. Let's have this conversation. If you can contribute here, whether it's monetarily wise and direct funds to Evanston, or just programs for the community, so we don't have to spend money on those programs, so then we can alleviate the stresses off of Evanston residents. And I think that's the most important thing. Recently had a conversation with an Evanston resident who was saying that she's a senior, and she doesn't make enough to go into senior living, so she pays for the property taxes in the place that she's lived her entire life. And her worry is that she might eventually get priced out of Evanston because of rising property taxes. And this is something that happens to different age groups, demographics across the boards. This is not just with seniors. It's not just with Black and brown residents. This is with residents, white, brown, Latinx, etc. And it's a conversation that we need to have, is that, we can't keep shouldering the burden on Evanston residents. It's not right. It's not fair. And they're going to be hurting. And in the end of the day, what's going to happen in 20 years? And, if residents have to continually shoulder the burden, and we might not have an Evanston that is very similar to what it is now. So these are the conversations we need to have. And I believe that comes with establishing that economic development plan. And we can just be more fiscally responsible going forward here in Evanston.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Sebastian. If anyone has any questions, I know we have Facebook Live going, but anyone here on the Zoom, if you all have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat, and I'll call on you to ask the questions. Um, so, Sebastian, this race, it has been very interesting, very interesting. What has this experience been like for you? I've been
It-
asking the candidates as of lately because it's been deep, and just in the past, I would say week and a half, it's gotten even more intense.
No, and I think it's expected, especially recently. This is the equivalent to October for when we see November elections, uh, and it's expected that it starts to heat up as we get closer to the election itself and the primary. But it has definitely been an interesting journey. I've enjoyed every step of the way, talking to residents, coming up and working with our policy teams and creating policy that we can come into office day one with. It's been an enjoyable experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I think that it's made me appreciate Evanston more by going and meeting new people, hearing all these different backgrounds and different stories, or people who have been here for 50, 60 years, and people who just moved a couple months ago in Evanston. Uh, and I think this whole race has been interesting because we have obviously we have individuals in Evanston who are frustrated with the current city council, current administration, because we have so many candidates running. And I appreciate every individual who has come out to run so far. I've had the opportunity to have conversations with most candidates so far. I'm still trying to squeeze some in there now, so I can learn more about them. But it's just been an amazing experience overall. And I feel that all these candidates have great ideas for Evanston going forward. Uh, and I think that has really resulted in, conversations about key issues in Evanston and, bringing new solutions to the table. And there might be some back and forth on what solutions are the best for Evanston, who would be the best to implement them. But I believe that, as together that we can come together and bring these ideas and create something that's really positive here in Evanston. And I look forward to working with, all the candidates, having conversations with them, and then, working with the city of Evanston going forward in whatever capacity that is. And this is a place that I call home, that I love and enjoy. And I'll always be a part of it, and in some way, shape, or another. And I think that's the most gratifying part of all of this.
Mm. Well, we appreciate you. I think you've woken up a lot of people here in Evanston. Your voice has, and you're very knowledgeable about what's going on in this city. And that's important because you've been educating us, a lot of us, about what's actually taking place, and forcing us to do more research into what's happening in the city. So I appreciate that. So thank you for that. And you brought up home. So home, everyone is used to the Civic Center being right there off of Ridge, and so now they're talking about moving it. So of course they're making it seem like they're listening to the residents, and they want to get input before they come to a decision. But we already know they've already made a decision to move the Civic Center, and they're going to move it downtown Evanston because they said they want it to be more centrally located so everybody can get to it. But if it's downtown Evanston, now you got to worry about parking. So it's going to be really more of a challenge and an obstacle for people to get there. And many people believe that they moved it there to keep the community out from coming to public comment to speak. What are your thoughts on that? I want the Civic Center to stay right there off of Ridge. I mean, why can't they just fix it up?
No, and it's a great topic. I remember when the question was first asked in an interview I had probably a month ago, and I was like, where did this conversation even start? I didn't know that this was a conversation being had in the community. From going and talking to people, this doesn't seem like the most pressing issue that could be talked about, and it eventually gained traction, and then all of a sudden we're having city council time devoted to this. And I spoke recently Monday in the city council meeting against having this discussion, and I know Lori Keenan did as well. And I think that's the issue that we've seen time and time again with especially the city council, is that we aren't listening to residents and we're not having that community input. If this was a rumor that was started in January, there is no feasible way that we've had enough community input in the span of a month to warrant this discussion before an election. It doesn't make sense to me that 8 of the 9 sitting council members are up for election. Either they have a primary coming up or they're up for election in April. And it doesn't make sense for this to be even talked about. This should be talked about after the election and after we have a large amount of community input. And personally, I feel that the selling of the Civic Center should not be done with city council alone, that this should be a referendum item, that Evanston residents can choose what happens with the Civic Center. This is not the selling of one of our smaller, assets in the city. This is, the asset of the city that will have a large financial impact going forward. There were talks about TIFs on Monday. For those who don't know what a TIF is, it's essentially a financial district where there's a cap on tax revenue, essentially. So say, an area in Evanston generates $5 million worth of tax revenue. That cap is placed on there. Any money that is generated over that $5 million threshold goes directly into the TIF. Now, the problem with TIFs is that originally they ended up with good intent, that you take that money, you essentially put it into developments to spur community developments in blighted communities. And it's largely in use in Chicago, but it has largely led to gentrification. And there's a certain amount where funds do not need to be reported if they meet a certain threshold. And it just all around, this is a TIF exists for 20, 30 years. And so essentially what the city of Evanston wants to do is put a TIF around the Civic Center and sell the Civic Center, and that money will go towards the TIF. And essentially any money for the next 20 years will go towards that TIF to go through with whatever development. I'm not in favor of TIFs. I believe that there's been too much malpractice with them in Illinois to warrant their usage, and that there are better alternatives where we can execute this more properly. So I agree that this needs to be community driven, that we need to have further conversations after the election. And I think that's why residents have been frustrated with the current city council, the current administration, that, these decisions have already been made. And, let alone me as a candidate, but me as a resident, that's extremely worrying that, my voice isn't being heard at any point in time, because there may be community involvement, there may be community meetings, but if the decision was made months ago, all of that is for nothing. Yeah, so it is definitely an interesting conversation. I applaud the candidates who have already spoken out against the issue and have risen their concerns. And I think it's our jobs as candidates and elected officials going forward to educate Evanston residents so that they understand fully what's going on, and that they can be in tune and that they can make an educated decision for themselves on whether or not this is the right decision for Evanston going forward.
Yes, well, with our national government, now we have a new administration and it already feels different, even though they just got there and they haven't really gotten their feet wet. They have such a mess to clean up. It's my heart goes out to the Biden and Harris administration. But even on the local level, it seems to be a cry for a change. Not everybody on the council, but there's definitely some people on the council that need to go. And I think they know who they are. I think they know who they are. So yeah, it is time for some new blood and some people who are really about the people, who are about
Yeah.
the people.
No, I agree. And that's, that's the job of elected officials and public servants. We're here to serve. And that's plain and simple. And, we shouldn't have ulterior motives, and we should be listening to community members and residents, and having these conversations on a consistent basis. And I think that, it can be hard sometimes as an elected official. I understand that. I'm not, naive to think that, it's all sunshine and rainbows behind the curtains, and that it requires a lot of tactful work in pushing these policies forward.
Sebastian,
But
you do
it's
not come off naive at all. Nothing about you says naive about what's going on in this city.
it's just important that, as public officials, that, and sometimes we require, reminders that, we need to stay on track. And that's where, we need to be held accountable by Evanston residents. I encourage people to criticize me in my platform, and, whatever that may be. And, they come with me with suggestions and, oh, I think this would work better. Because again, I don't know everything. And, I need to be a listener. And I think that's where, I come from an interesting perspective. I'm still in school. That's what I do, as my full-time job, because I'm a full-time student, is that I listen to my professors. I'm learning. And I think that's exactly what we need in terms of leadership here in Evanston, across the board and across the city council. That we need to be listening to the concerns of residents. We need to be listening to the experts in our boards and commissions, and then we need to have an appropriate response when tackling issues going forward.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sebastian. If you got a couple, if anyone has any questions, we're gonna close out and let Sebastian get back to the people. Get back to the people. If anyone has any questions, otherwise I'm going to close it out here. Sebastian, let people know where to contact you for questions. I know some people are camera shy. I believe in calling on people and you ask the question. Um, so let people know where they can contact you.
Yeah, no, you can visit www.sebastiannalls.com. If you scroll down on our front page, there's a section that goes, "How can I help?" So if you ever have any questions, concerns, just shoot a comment in there, question, and I'd be happy to answer it. And numbers also on the website as well. Feel free to reach out and call, have a conversation, and we can talk about things. And if your neighbors are concerned about something and you want to have a conversation, we can schedule a Zoom meeting and we can talk about it then. I enjoy talking with residents and answering any questions. And if I don't know the answer, shoot, I'll go and find the answer and do some research and get back to you. And that's exactly what we need here in Evanston going forward. So yeah, again, you can go to www.sebastiannalls.com. You can leave a question, look at our policies, our platform, and what our vision is for Evanston. And again, Malika, I appreciate you giving me the chance to come on here and talk to Evanston residents.
Well, it looks like you do have a question. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you. And being so open. We need that. Someone who's open and willing to seek the information, even if you don't have the answers right then and there. I'm afraid of anybody who thinks they know it all and got it all figured out. Lorna, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question? You can unmute. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Can you hear me, Malika?
Yes.
Oh, I was just saying high five to Sebastian. Great job. I think he is very aware of what's going on in Evanston. I'm just really interested. I don't even live in the city of Evanston, but I just love the way that this young man presents himself, and I wish you the best, Sebastian.
Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Malika.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that was a high five. All right. All right. If anyone else has a question, we're going to let Sebastian, he was running to even get to this meeting. He's been out there in the community, and I absolutely love that he is out there talking to people. And so we got to let him get going, see if we can get one more question in. Anyone else has a question? Going once, going twice. All right, Sebastian. So keep us posted. You know, the door is always open here for you at Evanston Live TV with everything that's going on. And you're out there at the polls talking to people as well. Of course, keeping your distance and having your mask on. So where will you be tomorrow? Are you going to be out there tomorrow?
Yep, I've been out there every day. I'll continue to be out there every day. You know, usually my times kind of differ. I like to break it up so I'm not in 10-degree weather, you know, for the full 9 to 5. But usually you can find me out there 9 to 11, 9 to 12, and then, you know, 1 to 3, 2 to 4. So I'll be out there for early vote. I encourage people to go out and go out to early vote. You know, we can even have a conversation in the cold or in the snow for a little bit, and you know, and you can exercise, you know, your civic rights going forward. But if you can, I know that there's a little bit of time left to still request a mail-in ballot. It's kind of iffy when it gets a little closer to the election and making sure that, you know, Cook County sends them out. But you know, early vote will continue the February 22nd, and then February 23rd is the primary.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you. Thank you. And one more time, let everyone know where they can contact you. One more time.
www.sebastiannalls.com. Just go down to the bottom of the page, how can I help section, leave a comment, suggestion, anything.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Sebastian, again. And I'm sure we'll be talking again very soon.
Of course. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. And thank you for fighting for the community. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. This has been Malika, Evanston Live TV. I want to thank everyone for watching this evening. Thank you for those who attended here in the Zoom and those watching out there Facebook Live. I will be releasing this video out on YouTube, Instagram as well. So you all please stay engaged. It is so important that you know what's going on because decisions clearly have been made, are being made, and you're not going to know anything about it until it's there. And you can be like, wait, what happened? You got to stay engaged, people. Please, please do that. And please stay safe out there. Thank you all and have a great evening. Stay tuned here. We have the City Clerk Forum coming up February 16th.